it's Mo. It is October, so I wanted to do a little wrap up of Shorty September because I did make a Shorty September pile of possibilities. To participate in Shorty September, all you have to do is read short books. Maybe short books are 200 pages and less, maybe short books are 250 pages and less. That's what I count as a short book. And this year it was put on by Heather. Usually Past Storytime puts this one on too, but they've taken a break from doing videos. So Heather and a bunch of other creators teamed up to keep Shorty September alive, and they did do prompts for Shorty September. I will put a picture of their prompt board up. It's always Heather's artwork. This one was really fun, and she has a whole video on like how you can fold it into like a passing notes in high school type of note, which I think is really cute, so I'll leave that listed down below. I mentioned when I did my Shorty video that I wanted to try and read 30 and 30, but I also mentioned that I would come back and talk about the prompts for this year's Shorty September, which are a collection of prompts from previous years, and I would talk about the Shorty September tag. Obviously this tag was created by the Shorty September creators, but I first saw this on Aaron Read a Book or Aaron Read a Book, and I thought it would be a fun one to do. I think we're gonna do the prompts first. I read a lot of short books in September. This is a big pile of short books that I read in September, and I also read some books on audio, and I also read some short stories on audio. So I have more books than this even that I read that were short. The Shorty September prompts for 2025 are bike shorts, pair a book with a research deep dive. I'm just going to choose out of the physical books that I have here, and I don't think I have any deep dive that I did for this first prompt. So I definitely didn't deep dive anything particular for this Shorty September, but that is something that I do really often. A short book that I read after September was The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, and I did do a little research on the author of that afterwards. Obviously it doesn't count for Shorty September, but it was interesting to do, and I think that's a really nice thing about reading, is that oftentimes whatever you read, whether it's fictional or nonfiction, you might want to do more research on that subject, and you might find out more interesting things about that subject. The next prompt was half and half shorts, read a book and watch the adaptation. Did I do that? Also no. I'm sure I read books that have adaptations, but there was nothing that I read that I also watched the adaptation. If I had to pick which books I would want an adaptation for, the Mrs. Polifax series. This is a super fun series in the Thursday Murder Club kind of vein, but written 30 years earlier. So these books were written in the 1980s and 1990s, and they follow Mrs. Polifax, who no one would suspect is a spy for the CIA. So in the first books, Mrs. Polifax decides that she's going to become a spy, and then in subsequent books she goes on different spy missions. The Elusive Mrs. Polifax is the third in the series and the one that I read for Shorty September. These are really fun books in that vein of the elderly detective series, but written a long time ago and hold up surprisingly well. They are the kind of cozy mysteries that I really like, where yes, it's a cozy mystery, yes, it's a silly premise, yes, it's a fun time adventure, but there's also like deeper subject matter going on somewhere in the book, and there is deeper commentary on different topics that are still relevant to today. So I would love to see an adaptation of this one, and I think it would go over really well. The next prompt is ripped shorts, read a mystery, horror, or thriller. So I read, let's see, mystery, horror, thriller, mystery, suspense, another suspense novel, which I would consider in those, and then I did read a couple of others as well. So a pretty good stack, and probably a couple of the ones that I read just on audio would count for that as well. Patent leather shorts, read a graphic novel or a book out of your comfort zone, and I read a graphic novel, which was Yan and Moo by Junji Ito. This is a diary, a cat diary of Junji Ito's cats, and it was really fun to read, and I really enjoyed it. And because Junji Ito is a horror author, this could sort of count for other prompts as well. Boxer shorts, read a comfort read. A lot of the books that I read could be considered comfort reads. I definitely think that Mrs. Polifak series could be considered comfort reads. I read a Mary Robert Reinhardt, who I would definitely consider a comfort author for me. And then there were books that were like pretty comforting as well, like The Uncommon Reader. And I even would maybe say that the Sworn Soldier series by T. Kingfisher could be considered comfort reads. I really like this universe and I really like being with Alex, our main character. Fashion runway shorts, read a translated book. So Junji Ito's Yan and Mu is translated. And then I did also read Japan in the Passing Lane, an insider's account of life in a Japanese auto factory by Satoshi Kamada. And this was translated and edited by Tetsuro Akimoto. So this was another Japanese translated work. Granddad shorts, read a book you've had for a while. I definitely have had Double Blind for a while. This is by Edward St. Aubin, and I really just got it for the cover because I didn't know what it was going to be about. It turns out that it's a little bit of like a family, familial drama with some interwoven different characters. I mean, it's like found family familial drama because it's not necessarily all about one family but multiple people blended together. And I thought it was interesting. It's not one that's going to stick with me, I don't think, but I definitely have had this one on my shelves for a while. Another one that I've had for a while is Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. This one is also kind of an interwoven tale of multiple people told in an extreme stream of consciousness style. Utilitarian kilt, like so a kilt but with shorts, I guess, is that. Retelling or traditional meets modern, and I would definitely consider What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher a traditional meets modern or a retelling. So the first book in this Sworn Soldier series was a retelling of The Fall of House of Usher, and this is more of a retelling of kind of Eastern European folklore. These horror books are all going to blend existing stories and fairy tales and short stories with the Sworn Soldier storyline of Alex and their companions. Running shorts, read a book in a day or do sprints or read a book during sprints. I read several of these books in less than 24 hours. I definitely read Yan and Mu just sitting in one session, but there were also quite a few of these other books that I read like over a 24-hour period. Culottes, a book that looks like one thing but is another. I would say that Yan and Mu could definitely be this because Junji Ito is a horror author, so he has made this kind of look like a horror novella or a horror manga, but it is a story about his cats and how much he loves his cats. I would also say Blackmail by Doris Miles Disney could look like one thing but is another because it looks like a cozy mystery. You think it should be a cozy mystery. There is a mystery element, but it's more of a suspense because you kind of know the answer to the mystery right away. Shorty Shorts, a book from the 70s or 80s. Quite a few of those. The Elusive Mrs. Polifak was written in 1971. Japan in the Passing Lane was written in 1973, but the translated version was published in 1982. One I haven't talked about yet, also a sequel, is Castle for Rent by Don DeChancy. This was published in 1989. Another book that I haven't talked about yet is Offshore by Penelope Fitzgerald. This was written in 1979. I read quite a bit of poetry for Shorty September, and one was The Night We Stood Up for Our Rights, poems by Morty Sklar, and these poems ranged from 1969 to 1975. So quite a few books from the 70s and 80s. And then the bonus prompt I did not fulfill, that was to annotate a short book and then pass it along to someone else. So I got two prompts that I really didn't read a book for, which was a book with a research deep dive and a book and then watch the adaptation, but we kind of sort of had answers for those as well. The only one I really didn't get was that annotation one. I don't really annotate in general, but that does sound like a super fun project, and that might be something to think about next Shorty September. So So real quick, let me do the Shorty September tag. I haven't really looked at these questions, and instead of doing them for Shorty September, because Shorty September has already passed, I will do them just as short books that I would like to read. Prompt number 1 for the Shorty September tag is short book on your TBR you're most excited to read. I would love to read more in the Mrs. Polifax series. These are all very, very short, under 250 pages. I did also get a huge lot of Doris Miles Disney books after reading Blackmail, and these are mostly under 250 pages, so I would love to get to those. I'm reading through the Castle Perilous series by John DeChancy. I've read 3 or 4 of these, so I'm getting through my rereads, so that's pretty high on my list as well. And then so many other shorty books that are on my TBR. The next prompt is your favorite prompt from Shorty September, or one that you can make up, or one that you'd like to see come back. I like all the prompts. I mean, I definitely always love there to be like a translated prompt. I think that's great. I like the prompt, read a book and then watch the adaptation. I think that's super fun. I like to read a graphic novel. I like a comfort book and one outside of your comfort zone. I'm trying to think if there was one that I remember from another year that I really liked. Oh, well, I don't remember what the prompt was that was associated with it, but I know last year, because Pedro Pascal was all the rage, we had Pedro Pascal shorts, and I don't remember what that prompt was, but that's a fun prompt. So maybe I would like to see that one come back, no matter what the prompt is. The next prompt is favorite shorty book, or favorite shorty from a past Shorty September. Man, oh man, I can't remember what shorties I've read in the past because I read so many short books. It's a little bit hard to distinguish Shorty September from all the other short books that I read, but my all-time favorite book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is a shorty book. It is under 250 pages, so I think I have to go with that one. And would it really even be a tag if I didn't mention Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? The next prompt is book that maybe should have been a shorty. So a book that was too long, in my opinion. I mean, that's so many books. I'm currently reading Queen of the Damned, which is the 3rd in the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice, and those books are so long. I think the first one is really effective, but I think almost all the other ones could have been cut down. I don't know if they could have been cut down to 250 pages or less, but they could have been cut down, that's for sure. I think like most books should only be 250 pages. 250 pages to 350 pages is very reasonable, but I think any longer than that, you either need to do a little bit of editing, or like in the case of a fantasy novel or something like that, like maybe it needs to be a series, not just long book. Are there any other books that I really think could be cut down? I think most books work really well as short books, so there's just a lot of books that I think could be cut down, and I just personally love novellas, and I think a lot of books should be novellas even when they aren't. Of course, included in this tag is to tag someone, so I'm sure that everyone who's participated in Shorty September has either already done this tag or doesn't need to do this tag. Maybe save it for next year and consider yourself tagged for next Shorty September, or maybe just answer one of the questions in the comments below, like what short book are you most excited about, or what's a book that you've read that you think should have been a shorty. So that's my wrap up for Shorty September. Let me know if you participated. Let me know the answer to any of those questions in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!